Okay, now we will look at SD 46.14, the Virahachani Sutta, the discourse to the Virahachani lady, S 35.133. The theme is the proper way to teach the Dharma. This is on page 143. This is a remarkable sutta in a sense that it shows this a Brahmin teacher to be a woman. And the good thing is she's also quite amenable. In other words, she makes mistakes, but she's very quick to learn. And it also shows how a monk respects the Dharma. So he's teaching the Dharma at the right time and so on. All right? Now, we're talking about respect here. I remember telling you about the 4 kinds of respect. Respect for the Buddha as teacher, respect for the Dharma as the true teaching, respect for the Sangha, the noble disciples of the Buddha. And number 4 is respect for hospitality, being kind to people. When you see them, you welcome them, because you stand before them representing the Buddha's teaching as a Buddhist. So hospitality is a very important Asian quality. So now we can say it's a very important Buddhist quality, hospitality, keeping an open house to people who visit us as friends, and so on. But here on page 143, you can see you can extend to 5 kinds of respect, right? 6 kinds of respect, rather, on section 1.2.1.1. 1211. First is respect for the teacher. The Buddha is our teacher. We have no other teachers. So we should study and practice what he teaches us. If you do not owe allegiance to him, you have so many teachers and you won't be able to benefit from any of them. Grasp all, lose all. A friend to all is a friend to none, and so on. It's like you're married to someone, but you're eyeing another person. So it's wrong to kind of disregard the Buddha if we claim ourselves to be Buddhists, and then claim that Buddhism is doing nothing for you. Buddhism does nothing for us, in a sense. It is what we do for ourselves, and that's what Buddhism teaches us. So the Buddha himself is that example, how he himself discovers the Four Noble Truths, and then he teaches it to us. And that is why we are so grateful to him for giving us such a clear and efficacious system of teachings, so that we can help ourselves too. Then you have the respect for the Dharma. That's the teaching the Buddha gives us, which empowers us to use self-effort to free ourselves. No other religion does this like the Buddha's teaching. Other religions always talk down to their crowd, to their congregation. They are sinners, they are bad, and so on. Whereas the Buddha says that your mind is by nature bright. So if you practice, you keep the precepts, you practice meditation, you see this bright mind. Then you build up your wisdom and you free yourself from suffering. Then the Sangha, we respect the Sangha. This is a noble Sangha, not the conventional Sangha. We take this noble Sangha, the great saints, especially the Arahats, as examples. So can you imagine people who talk bad about the Arahats? So definitely these people are not true Buddhists, and they are looking down the very thing that the Buddha said, this is the goal of the practice. So respect for the Sangha also means respect for the Arahats. The Buddha is an Arahat. And of course there are the other 3 stages of sainthood. You have the non-returner, once-returner, and the stream winners. The meaning here, respect for the noble Sangha, means we can, to our own effort, aspire to attain the path. And in that way, in this life itself, become a stream winner and attain the path of awakening. Number 4 is respect for the training. Sikha Garavata. Here this means, of course, we call ourselves Buddhists, we should somehow train ourselves as Buddhists. In a very quick summary would be, number 1, we are restrained in bodily action and speech. We are positive, happy in bodily action and speech, keeping the precepts. And our minds are bright and happy. So it is clear, it is stable, focused, so that it is able to receive wisdom. And wisdom here refers to our ability to see, to connect the various conditions, causes and effects in our lives, and understand what we are, understand others so we can help them effectively. Now, number 5 is the respect for heedfulness. Sometimes the whole of Buddhism is summarized in this one word, heedfulness, appamada. Here, now Sikha is the training, the number 4 is the training. Number 5 is, you can say, what goes on in our minds, if you like. Not giving up, not being lax, keeping ourselves on the path, focusing our energies, living the right kind of life, so that our minds are well directed, well grounded in the practice. Then number 6 is the traditional last one, respect for hospitality. There are other people like this, so we keep in touch, we are connected with them. So you can talk about fellowship here if you like. So hospitality here means welcoming all these wonderful good people and being kind to others. So these are the 6 kinds of respects, right? So that's a bit of introduction. So let's look at the sutta itself, the Verahachani Sutta, page 149. Verahachani Sutta, the discourse on the Verahachani lady, S35.133. At one time, the Venerable Udayi was living in the Brahmin Todeya's mango grove outside Kamanda. So this is, we're talking about Maha Udayi. There are many people named Udayi. Udayi is quite a common name. But this is the wise Udayi. Udayi the Great, okay, the elder. So you have this Arahat is living, meditating in a mango grove. Then a Brahmin youth, a resident student or apprentice of a Brahmini lady of the Verahachani clan, approached the Venerable Udayi. So here again you see this very familiar scenario. The monks sits there in nature, always available to people. You can go to the monks anytime you want to ask questions. So in this sense, a monk has no privacy. He doesn't live a private life. Someone told me something rather strange yesterday. I was phoning up asking for a friend is looking for a monk to give robes to in memory of their late father. So I asked this person, is there a monk you can recommend? He said, oh yeah, we know this monk, but I can't give you the phone number because I'm not sure whether he would allow you to phone him. So I kind of thought this was strange because a monk would never say that. A monk is always available. You know, when I was a monk, I remember someone knocking on my door at 1 a.m. in the morning and saying, oh, somebody, is in a trance, can you please help? Just like that. You can't say, hey, don't you know this is my sleeping time? Well, this is one thing about being a monk. You're always on call, right? So you have the example of Udayi here. He's living in this mango grove in the open. And here comes along this young man who's a Brahmin student, and he asked this monk, some Dharma questions, and he's very happy to hear what Udayi has to teach. Look at the second part of section 2. Having approached the Venerable Udayi, he exchanged greetings with him, and when the courteous and friendly exchange was concluded, he sat down at one side. So this is the usual protocol, if you like. When he was seated thus at one side, the Venerable Udayi instructed, inspired, roused, and gladdened him. Right, so the Dharma teaching was given. We're not told exactly what it is, because that's not the focus of this story. Notice here, this paragraphs 2 and 3 shows you the proper way that the Dharma is transmitted to others. It's not just with Buddhism. There's this general kind of arrangement protocol where everyone practices. Even though they may not be Buddhist, they would come, see the monk or the Buddha and greet each other in a friendly way, and then sit down at one side. This is the Indian way. Of course, here, this is a social thing. Here it's all right, you sit right in front of the monk, but to the ancient Indians, they always sit on one side.
And the separate level.
It doesn't matter, side, so that the front is not blocked, so anyone can see this teacher or see the Buddha. Even today, if you pass an Indian temple, you see it's the same arrangement. So they have preserved that tradition for thousands of years. All right, now what happens now? So you have this youth, this Brahmin youth. I think we are not told the name. Eh? We just said this Brahmin youth. So he's the pupil of the Virahachani lady. So he's the one, this young man, he goes to Udayi and he listens to the Dharma, he's very happy. Now section 4. When the Brahmin youth had been instructed, inspired, roused, and gladdened by the Venerable Udayi, he rose from his seat and left and approached the Brahmini lady of the Virahachani clan and said, "Indeed, madam, you should know that the recluse Udayi teaches the Dharma that is good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. Endowed with meaning and phrasing, he proclaims the holy life that is entirely complete and pure." Okay, this is a stock passage which shows that, this Udayi has taught the Dhamma that is proper in keeping with the Buddha's teaching. Right, so he's very happy. So he tells his teacher, the lady, that, I've met this monk, it's given me a wonderful teaching. And this lady is very happy. And she says, in that case, young Brahmin or Manavaka, invite the recluse Udayi in my name for a meal at dawn tomorrow. Right, so this is a very cordial, this is the sixth kind of respect, the Patisantara, who say invite him for a meal the next day. Then the young student says, yes, madam. The Brahmin youth replied, in essence, to the Brahmini lady of the Virachani clan. Then he approached the Venerable Udayi and said, would Master Udayi please accept a meal from the Brahmini lady teacher of the Virachani clan at dawn tomorrow? And the monk, the Venerable Udayi, consented by his silence. Okay. Again, this is a tradition of the Buddha's time, which is not practiced today. You go to a monk, when they accept, they'll say, yes, I accept. They won't remain in silence. Okay, so this is a minor social thing, so it can be changed, right? All right, so now we have this interesting invitation, and Udayi comes to see the lady Virahachani. Let's see what happens now. So this is the next scene, okay? Section 6. Then when the night had passed, early at dawn, the Venerable Udayi dressed himself and taking rope and bow, approached the Brahmini lady of the Virachani clan. When he arrived, he sat down on the seat that had been prepared. Now this usually would be like between 4 to 6 before sunrise, right? So they do this very early. Then the Brahmini of the Virachani clan served with his own hands food hard and soft, and satisfied the Venerable Udayi. In other words, Venerable Udayi had enough to eat. And then when the Venerable Udayi had finished his meal and washed his his bowl and hand. Okay, let me just pause here for a while. So, when a monk is eating, you don't talk to him. There's no chatting while eating. So the monk will eat very mindfully. How does the monk eat? If he uses a bowl, then you put food into his bowl, and he will mix the food up. Okay, he's not going to say, "Oh, I'm going to eat this curry first, and then the rice, and I take a bit of curry and put in the rice." No, he mixes everything up, and then he'll eat it. Okay. Then, when he is finished, he will pour some water and then wash the bowl and pour the water out. There will be another container, and then he washes his hand. Okay. Of course, he has a cloth also, and that shows. So the sutta will say, and the Buddha removed his hand from the bowl. That concludes the meal, in other words. So he has finished. And in other words, he's ready to give a discourse, to give a teaching. So this is what Udayi does. So when he has finished eating, now this is the highlight. Okay, this is what this Virahachani lady does, which we must make special note here. Having put on her sandals, took a high seat, covering her head, said this to the Venerable Udayi: "Speak on the teaching of the recluse." Okay, all right. Having said, "There will be the time for that, sister," the Venerable Udayi rose from his seat and left. Okay, so the Venerable Udayi did not teach any Dhamma because the Virahachani lady had the sandals on, took a high seat, covered her head. Okay, this is again protocol. Why doesn't Udayi teach the Dhamma? Because a lady behaved this way. This is not just a Buddhist thing. This is common to all the other religions. Even today, you find the traditional Indians, when they come to your house, I don't know whether there are any more traditional Indians left today, but when they come to your house, they will always take off their shoes when they walk to your house. But this is the thing they've learned since childhood. They will take off their shoes. I think it's to do with cleanliness of the house. Yeah? And then she took a high seat. Here, normally if you are ready for teaching, you take a low seat. Here it's not a matter of status, it's a matter of being able to listen. The teacher talks, and if there's a crowd, they will be able to listen clearly, easily. You can see the teacher. Covering the head. Even monks, when they go out for alms, they don't cover their heads, right? So this is like to show yourself openly. I'm a monk. Okay, in the case of the lay person, it is to show that she's ready. She's not like going out to a fun fair or some lay activity. So these are social conventions. Okay, so you find today these aspects are not really observed because the arrangement today is quite different. I have seen forest monks actually much lower than lay people. They are right at the bottom of the theater, you know, this amphitheater in a university. You find the theater sits kind of slope upwards. So the monks are right down there, and they give teachings. So these are minor rules which the Buddha allowed the monks to adjust. But this was during the Buddha's time when the rules were still in effect. So this is where we have to think in terms of the spirit of the law, as the French book, L'Esprit de Loi, the spirit of the law. Right? So how do we adjust this kind of practices so this is allowed today? But in the Buddha's time, the idea here is you are ready for the Dhamma, you respect the Dhamma. Now you see this kind of attitude still alive in academia. If you go to a good university, a good college, if there is a seminar, the organizer will tell you, no handphones, right? And you don't hear any sound of handphone. If your headphone goes off, my goodness, you look very uncivilized. You feel terrible, you know. And you listen very carefully when the speaker, even though he may be a student, is speaking. There is this great respect for learning. And there are many other rules like this, right? You don't speak off the point, for example. We did this study a few weeks ago, the previous lesson, you remember, speaking according to point. You don't knock down the other person. You can prove a point wrong, but you don't make it personal and so on. So there is this very wonderful atmosphere of learning. Then you are regarded as a true academic because of the respect for learning. And this feeling, this attitude all comes from the traditional monastic training where the Buddha teaches that there must be respect for the Dharma. So this sutta is about just that, respect for the Dharma. So because this lady is not ready, and moreover the way she invites the Uday, she just says, speak on the teaching of the recluse. You find this a command, it's not a request. Okay? So the monk Uday just quietly, politely says, there will be the time for that. Notice here, he's very polite. He doesn't say negatively. He doesn't say this is not the time. He says there will be the time for that. All right. So it's a very polite way of saying another time. All right. And he goes away. Now, so this whole thing repeats a second time. Okay. So this young student again goes to see Uday, and then he receives another teaching. He's very happy. He comes back home and he tells the lady Virahachani the same thing. And then, so this time the lady asks, it says, look at 11, section 11 on page 151. So you, young Brahmin, sing praises of the recluse Uday. But when he was told, speak on the teaching of the recluse, right? This recluse is the Buddha, okay? Notice he addresses the Buddha as the recluse. In other words, he has no particular faith in the Buddha. So now he's kind of curious, asking the student, says, you invited him the last time and I asked him to teach the Dharma. I said, speak on the teaching of the recluse. He said, there will be the time for that, sister, and rose from his seat and left. So he says, well, he didn't teach anything. Then the student replied, the student said, section 12, this is because you, lady, having put on your sandals, taken a high seat, and keeping your head covered, said this to the Venerable Uday, speak on the teaching of the recluse. For these worthy ones respect the Dharma. They revere the Dharma. Now notice the explanation here. This student also is amazing because he's like the in-between person. He's the one linking the lady who is new to Buddhism and the Arahat. So he's kind of explaining why things didn't work the first time. He says, well, because these Arahats respect the Dharma. So it's not they say, oh, I'm an Arahat, you must show me all this protocol. This is not the teaching here. The teaching here is that the Dhamma must be given with respect and listened with respect. Otherwise, the monks will not teach it. So in other words, the monks are not evangelists. They are not out there to convert the world, to tarify the world. You listen with respect when you're ready, or not, in other words. So this is very important in that sense. Right, so in that case, said the lady, okay, this time you invite him again. And now you have the proper scenario, okay? So let's look at section 14 now. So, all right, let's just finish up because a lot of things repeat here. The Venerable Uday finished eating and he's ready to talk, all right? So look at section 16. Then when the Venerable Uday had finished his meal and washed his hands and a bowl and hands, the Brahmini lady of the Virahachani clan removed her sandals and having taken a low seat, uncovered her head and said to the Venerable Uday, according to the Arahat's Bhante, notice this addresses the monk as Bhante, when what exists does the Arahat declare or define pleasure and pain? When what does not exist, does the Arahat not declare pleasure and pain? Oh, she's asking quite a tough question here, right? So this time she's very wise, She's ready, okay? So then Udayi gives the teaching. So this is the teaching given to the lady Virahachani. Section 17. Sister, when there is the I, the Arahat declares pleasure and pain. When there is no I, the Arahat does not declare pleasure and pain. When there is the ear, the Arahat declares pleasure and pain. When there is no ear, the Arahat does not declare pleasure and pain. When there is the nose, the Arahat declares pleasure and pain. When there is no nose, the Arahat does not declare pleasure and pain. When there is the tongue, the Arahat declares pleasure and pain. When there is no tongue, the Arahat does not declare pleasure and pain. When there is the body, the Arahat declares pleasure and pain. When there is no body, the Arahat does not declare pleasure and pain. When there is the mind, the Arahat declares pleasure and pain. When there is no mind, the Arahat does not declare pleasure and pain. So this teaching is laid out in full, like a computer program. Of course, today we like to summarize things. So we say, okay, how do you summarize this? Right? When there is any of the six senses, there also arises pleasure and pain. When there is no six senses, there's no pleasure and pain. So pleasure and pain are rooted in the six senses, in other words. The problem with summaries is that we take a lot of things for granted. We only look at the surface, so we do not penetrate the truth. So this is one of the problems why people don't get enlightened. So this is the full Dharma, in other words. You go step by step, and then it's a reflection. You see it with your inner eye. So this teaching is given, and the lady Virahachani is very happy. Section 18. When this was said, the Brahmini lady of the Virahachani clan said to the Venerable Udayi, "Excellent Bhante, excellent Bhante. Just as if one were to place upright what had been overturned, or were to reveal what was hidden, or were to show the way to one who was lost, or were to hold up a lamp in the dark so that those with eyes could see forms. In the same way, in numerous ways, the Dharma has been made clear by the noble Udayi. I, noble Udayi, go to the Blessed One as refuge, and to the Dharma and to the community of monks. May the noble Udayi remember me as a lay woman who has gone for refuge from this day forth for life." So there you are. Happy ending, all right? So here you see the spirit of early Buddhism, the Dharma properly taught with respect, listen with respect. What you decide to do with Dharma, of course, is up to you. But this proper way of receiving the Dharma is very important. The Dharma is like a gift. So when a gift is given to us, we are grateful to the giver. So we, in a sense, owe the giver, so to speak. So there you are. This is the Virahachani Sutta, telling us of how the Dharma should be taught with respect, so that we are ready, body and mind, and the Dharma is properly transmitted. That is why there are Vinaya rules telling the monks when they are not supposed to teach the Dharma. They are not supposed to teach the Dharma, for example, to someone who is on a higher level, someone who's discovered, and so on. So these are the reasons they're not ready. They may trivialize the Buddha's teaching. Here is not a matter of status. Here is when they trivialize the teaching, they cut off the roots. This is what we are saying. In other words, they are not ready to, they won't change, in other words. So what the Buddha is saying is, be ready for the Dharma. It will change your life. If you're not ready, you just come to argue, or perhaps by then it might not work for you, in other words. Of course, the Buddha was a good debater, so even when someone comes to challenge the Buddha, he knew how to diffuse the challenge and the tension and win over the listener. So that, of course, we have to look for at another sutta. Here we see the example, very gentle nature of a monk, an arahat, and very compassionate and patient person, the monk Udayi. Okay, do look up the introductory notes and so on your own, okay? So, right, so we finished this just in time, just nice timing. Any questions or feedback?
Also is that during the time of Buddha, the Brahmins too were quite open-minded.
Oh yes.
They were prepared to offer alms to the Buddhist monks too.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about quite a huge community, you know. The Buddha's time, 6th or 5th century BCE, we're talking about the area of central Gangetic Plain. That is the most prosperous part of India at that time, and it is an iron age, so they're using iron, so they could make better tools and weapons. There was a lot of food, so the population increased. There was peace, you know, and there was a time when new ideas were coming in. Basically the new people, the younger people, they're not too happy with the old ways, the old standards. The Brahmins, they were having lots of expensive rituals, okay? So basically it's like today, you know, we know the death rituals are very expensive, and these professional priests and monks, they are not really moral, they have no moral standards, or they're just professionals, they're just business people, you know, who provide the service that we need. But no one makes the effort to change these things. But there is this mobility. People are willing to listen to something good, something right. So too in the Buddha's time, there were these many Brahmins. They were very educated people. So obviously they were willing to listen to the Buddha, and many of them were very kind and good people. But where there is light, there's always shadow. So you do find there are some of them who, especially the upper class, the top leaders, so they were the nastiest guy, because they want to preserve the status quo, they want to preserve this old system for their benefit, because they have property, they have wives, they have power, they serve the kings and so on. So they're not willing to give this up. And also the area we're talking about here, what's called the Buddha land, the central Gangetic Plain, we call Majjhima Desa, we call the Holy Land. The Kshatriyas were in ascendancy. The nobles, they were the ones who were more dominant in society. The Brahmins, the powerful Brahmins, were pushed to the west, more towards the west, nearer to Afghanistan area. So we are talking about the Kshatriya were having the upper hand. So naturally, the Buddha, being a Kshatriya, easily earned their respect too. So there are many conditions, yeah. Okay, social as well as religious and spiritual. Any other questions?
Yeah, in the Bandhana Karaka Sutta,
Yeah.
the monk who is the source of strife, he dies confused, and then in number 5, he ends up in hell.
Suffering state, yeah.
I was just wondering, between a monk who is a source of strife, that means not a good monk, and a layman who is not a good layman, when they die, does the monk get a higher punishment?
It's hard to say, you know. I mean, it depends on their mental state, whether monk or nun. Of course, generally speaking, if you have a monk who shows himself to be a monk and he abuses that status, of course, you might say that's really terrible, you know. But I can't say generally that there's a rule that a monk must always, you know, suffer more gravely than a layman. Generally, we know laymen are more likely to suffer because a layman, they are more worldly, you see. But now, from this kind of sutta, we know it's an open field. Suffering comes to anyone. You can't really categorize which group suffers more. It doesn't go by group. It is an individual thing. It's like today in our society, of course, the problem is we talk about our society is different. If a poor man breaks the law and a rich man breaks the law, you can get a good lawyer, that's another story, you see. But in terms of, we're talking about the mind of the criminal. So whether it's a layman or it's a rich man, that mind will be a rotten mind. So, and that person will live with it. And the realities he sees with his mind will come to him. So what the Buddha is doing, like he is like Dickens, you know, he goes into the mind of the, like say, Scrooge, all right, and show what happens to him, how he thinks, and what he experiences. So the Buddha is more interested in, you might say, psychological and spiritual state of the person. So in other words, it is something individual rather than as a group. So I would say both the monk and the nun, they can go through different levels of dimensions of suffering. There's no way of measuring it. Okay? So I don't know whether that answers your question.
You say somewhere in the Buddha Kosha says in the commentary that
yes. Yeah, Buddha Gosha said that, but it's not found in the suttas. But in a sense, he's right too, because he says that if you are a monk and you break the rules, then it's like you are falling from an elephant. Whereas if you are a non-Buddhist and you mess up your teachings, let's say some other religion, it's like falling from a donkey. It's not that bad, because what he's saying after all is a wrong thing anyway you're following, you know. So he's trying to show here his faith in Buddhism. He's trying to show that, wow, the Buddha is talking about true reality, you know. So you have all these wonderful teachings and you mess it up, you're missing this great chance, you see. So you're losing all this wonderful opportunity. So the loss is much bigger. So this is the emphasis here, that the Buddha's teaching talks directly of true reality, where others are talking about certain teachers, prophecies, God ideas. So those are wrong views anyway. Right. So the emphasis is different. That's why I got to see the context, the context of the teaching and the stories and so on. You notice all these early suttas that they're very direct, very clear. They bring out things which we can understand in daily life, nothing fancy and then kind of bizarre, you know. And something that helps us in our daily life. Okay.
I enjoy these sutta study classes.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah. Yes.
In Thailand, there's a military monk. You all of it.
Oh, occasionally we do get those kinds of people.
There's this guy who advocates killing and all that kind of stuff. Because he's the one who wants to wipe out the Rohingya, you know.
Oh, is it? Oh, you're talking about Myanmar or Thailand? Myanmar, yes. Yes, he came on Time magazine also, but
this guy is still doing well.
no. Anyway, he's quiet now. I think he's being disciplined, you know. He is quiet now. Yeah. The authorities have kind of asked him to tone down. Of course, definitely this is not proper. A lot of anger and hatred. You can see in his face, you know. Oh, in Thailand also, we had our military monk those days when there were the threat of the communists. So he said something like, "The communists are not humans, you know, so it's okay to kill them." So of course the other mainstream monks say, oh, no, we can't agree with that. Yeah, so, okay, we do get, I mean, you have hundreds of thousands of monks, you know. So occasionally these monks become more nationalist than usual. It's quite complicated because when I was in Thailand, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of monks, and most of these monks, they come from very poor families, from the peasant families, to put it very simply, the farmers and so on, you know. And the arrangement is that you have this monkhood gives them, the monkhood absorbs the poor. Unfortunately, it's only the male, usually the males, the men, they can become monks. So the young men have a chance, if they are good monks, they study Pali, and they also can study other things. So they actually they have a chance to join the aristocracy if they properly practice as a monk. Or they can go into the secular world, become teachers. So there's a saying, if you are a monk going beyond 40, you're going to remain as a monk for the rest of your life. But 40 is the crucial age. You know, I was 40 when I left the order anyway, so it's just nice. So 40 is the cutoff age, right? So they have a chance to train themselves. So you imagine this, most of these monks, they come from a poor family. So if there is some kind of social strife, you know, the big problem about poverty, so they can feel it because it is their lives, their families are affected. So there was a time when I was there, you find these monks going for demonstration because their lives, their families are affected. So it's quite difficult to separate religion from their life. So that's why the abbots often will address and say, oh, you're monks now, you know, so you should not be thinking too much about these things and so on. So it can be quite tricky sometimes. So, but generally, of course, now things are kind of more or less back to normal. The monks have this chance to study, and then from there they go step by step. Sometimes before they are becoming monks, they will resign and then go to university or so on. So they have choices. So here you see the society incorporating religion into the social aspect of their whole civilization. So this is a very Thai thing. Okay, I would say, in a sense, the Thais are doing it in a more systematic way than in Sri Lanka, for example. Because in Sri Lanka, there's no rules there. You're on your own. So what a young Sri Lankan monk probably will do is they will come to Malaysia, Singapore. They know the people here are very devoted. So they will just be present, show themselves, hoping to get a rich lay sponsor. This is the rule. Even today, you go to any Singhalese temple, you see the young man will not talk to you if you say you're a full-time lay Buddhist. They just suddenly they won't talk to you because you can't help them. But if you say you are a millionaire or you're a big businessman, oh yeah, they'll be very nice to you, talk to you, because they're looking for sponsors to sponsor the university education, learn English, and then before you know it, they got a PhD and they're teaching in some university somewhere. So this is the new approach, the professional monks of Thailand, right? Of course, the Singhalese people themselves are not happy with this because they're exploiting the system. So these are social realities which need to be corrected. It's partly our fault because we forget what the monk is for. So this we have to tell them, we have to remind them, this is not the way. You can always do this as a lay person, you know. Right? But as I said, we have to tell them what's the right way. Otherwise, it's a big problem that covers the whole culture.
So if a monk, like in the Sri Lankan scenario, they were first in the Sangha with say 5 or more monks. And then one young monk leaves and goes and set up his own center or temple. Where is the Sangha?
The Sangha is a connection. It can be quite global.
So he will connect it to...
Yeah, still be connected. Yeah. For example, they have this like almost a Roman Catholic kind of idea. You see, there are 3 big groups, 3 big sects in Sri Lanka. The high caste sect are called the Siam Nikaya. They only ordain the highest caste, okay, the royal caste, all right. Then you have another one called the Amarapura Nikaya. So they will ordain another caste, normally not from the high caste. And then you have the low caste, the Ramanya, so they can ordain most of from the lower caste. So they're divided by caste. Although nowadays you find they will tell you, oh no, we don't do that anymore, but reality is still there. Of course, they talk to each other, but when it comes to reality, it's like who's going to take over the temple? Like in KL, the big temple, you find the chief monk dies, and his nephew all the way in Sri Lanka comes and takes over that temple, and he doesn't know how to run it. See, so he got the dattotship. He went to the palace in lay clothes. Mind you, he's a chief high priest. He dressed in civis, you say, as a layman. He goes to the palace and receives the dato title. So it caused a bit of a furor for a while. So in a sense, he's not well respected in Malaysia, sadly. So things came for a change there. So this Nikaya system, the sect system, they will appoint their monk in the US. So he's given the title Mahanayaka of the United States. But there's no such Sangha. There are only, let's say, 5 monks there, So people think, wow, he's the head monk of the whole of the US. But it doesn't exist. So the same thing in Malaysia. The chief high priest of Malaysia doesn't mean anything. But people who love titles will say, wow, so-and-so is the chief high priest. So there you have perception again. So these are things which mislead people, but they're popular because it attracts wealth. So this kind of thing, the thinking new Buddhists would reject. But the old Buddhists still, because they're not aware what's going on, they just follow like insects to the light, fortunately. So there's a lot of corrections that to be done here. Buddhism of wealth or Buddhism of renunciation.
So a monk like that was come out and singly set up a center. If he misbehaves, then who's to punish him? The Sangha in Sri Lanka?
It's unlikely anyone will punish him. He's on his own. Because those monks in Sri Lanka will not do it because it will throw bad light on them. So this is called the disavowal by silence, connivance by silence. So it's up to the layperson. So the layperson has to say, no, we cannot accept this. We will turn our bow down on you. So it's time the roles have to reverse now. The laymen have to speak up. Otherwise, they are taking advantage because they say, oh, the laymen don't know and don't care. This is more common than we know. Okay? The laymen in Sri Lanka now, they are a bit more concerned, and so even on our Facebook you find they always ask me, you see, this monk is teaching this, and this is very confusing, so I have to clarify for them. In fact, some of them, they're not even familiar with some basic teachings. For example, the spelling system in Sri Lanka, they spell with the CH, anicca. So you can translate anicca with the CH, meaning not wishing. So this monk says, actually anicca doesn't mean impermanence, it means not wishing. You will never get what you wish. Then some of these thinking lay people said, I never heard this before, So they asked me, how do you interpret it? I say, this is the way the Sinhalese transliterate from Sinhalese writing to Roman writing. They take the ch as ch. It should be just a c. There's a c and ch are two different letters. So he took this into the English spelling and he thought, anicca means not wishing. You can't get what you wish. So I said, you can't. There's no way you cannot substantiate this approach either in the sutta or anywhere else. So this is what they need. They want some kind of clarification that is clear, helpful to them. So there is this desire to know the right thing. So that's why I was telling the Sri Lankans, I say, you've got to get more lay people there to study the suttas and teach yourselves. You can't rely on the monks who are like this. So there is some sign of wanting to grow, but I hope they are serious. That maybe next generation you see something new coming up here. Okay, so we end here for today. It's very nice having all this discussion. The next round we have even some more interesting suttas. Oh, next one is wonderful. It's about Pajapati Gotami. Yeah? We don't talk much about her. This is the Buddha's mother. Okay, let's close with a short reflection. Buddhism is what we make of it. We have to respect the three jewels so that we can come close to them just as they are, not what we want them to be or not what we think they are, but to approach them just as they are. And as we come nearer, we are able to see more clearly who or what the Buddha really is, what the Dharma really is, who or what the true Sangha really is. And in that way we grow in wisdom, and our strength and moral courage also helps us to further propagate the three jewels to others so that their lives too are enriched. Reflecting in this way is wonderful good karma. By the power of this karma, may we be blessed with good health, wisdom, and moral courage to aspire to stream winning, at least in this life itself. And by the same truth, may our loved ones, may those who are practicing the Dhamma in the right way too, who be well and happy, and see the true teaching in this life itself. And by the power of the three jewels too, may those who are teaching the wrong things, have lost their way too, return to the true path in this life itself. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.